When in Rome, as they say. I didn't know if there was going to be really much of anything I'd do in Minnesota, and suddenly, welcome to Blue Earth. The green giant, 55.5 feet tall. There he is. So the trip was not wasted. Well, good morning. I had an interesting finish to my day yesterday. So I rode across more than half of South Dakota and almost all of Minnesota. So I'm getting close to Wisconsin. And in Wisconsin, I've got several motorcycle rides planned. Anyway, I tried to spend a night at the Carly State Park. When I get there, I find out that it actually closed on Labor Day, which was this September 4th this year, and today is the 16th. So that wasn't going to work. And, well, then I went to the nearby Whitewater State Park, and it was open, but it was full. So they suggested another place down the road. There's tons of camping in this area. So I went to this other place down the road, or towards it, and on my way I saw another campsite, so I pulled in there, and they had a sign up saying that they have tent camping, but actually the owners have switched. They only do long-term RVs now. But as I was talking with him, he's a motorcycle guy, he I guess took a little liking to the fact that I was doing a trip, and they had space where they used to have tents. So he said I could set up there. I said I was, fully self-contained. Then he came back later and talked to me a bit more, and we had a good time talking about motorcycle stuff. Anyway, because of that, originally he said no. Then he said, yeah, $20. And then he said, we're not going to charge you, just camp here. So I ended up camping for free. And yeah, so nice, some of the people you meet and the connections that you can make. So I got my tent up just in time, because there's a mountain ridge that I come down as you get into where the river is, which is where all the camping is. And so the sun set a good 45 minutes or so earlier than I thought it was going to be. But I was getting close to getting that anyway. I was thinking if I couldn't find a place soon, I was going to have to find a motel. But it all worked out great. And so I'm close now to where I want to ride. Yesterday was basically just a riding day, and I knew that I had to get through the Prairie. But now I'm close to Wisconsin. The Missouri River is what separates Minnesota and Wisconsin. And so I'll be riding near that for part of the day, and a couple of other roads. So onwards, let's go. Okay, so I'll do a quick recap of yesterday, because every day's got something interesting. But I started at Prairie, which is about halfway through South Dakota. And while the western half of South Dakota has the Black Hills and the Badlands and just some stellar motorcycle riding areas, well, the eastern half is kind of prairie. And then you hit Minnesota and you have more prairie. So I'm just going to do some sort of highlights of what I did along this route. And then I'll focus on what happens after. So I definitely don't want to slag the Midwest, but when I was researching my trip, this was one of the spots I thought was going to be a highlight of this day, and it kind of was. And that's at this place called Blue Earth, and lo and behold, there's the green giant. Now, if you're my age, when you were growing up, there was all kinds of commercials, ho ho ho, green giant, advertising their corn and beans and whatnot.
And so here it is. So if you're a kid at heart like me, it was kind of neat to do. So after the Green Giant, I largely saw farm fields and mostly corn. And that is until I got to my destination for the day. So let's review on the map. I started in Prairie in the center of South Dakota, and I essentially traveled the entire day along the I-90. And I was happy to get off it just outside of Rochester, and I ended up in the Whitewater River area, which has lots of interesting camping. I thought I'd timed everything out quite well. The sun was getting close to setting, but here I was at Carly State Park, and I thought I, had a spot for the night. But what I didn't realize was that Carly State Park has no camping. Oops. Well, I finally found some good roads, and after a few mistakes, I found a great place to spend the night. So everything worked out great. So now let's talk about today, and what am I going to ride while I'm in Minnesota and Wisconsin. For the most part, this trip is about finding great motorcycle roads and then riding them. But in this part of the country, I really didn't have anything on my list that I'd found. What I knew is I didn't want to ride along I-90 anymore. So off I went and explored to the north, and then I found some very interesting back roads as I was heading out to Green Bay. But I changed my mind and decided I would ride along the Mississippi River for a while, and that was cool. And then I went inland, and at this point I was really just kind of going with the flow, seeing what I wanted to see, but I was heading in the direction I wanted to go. Anyway, I ended up in a really nice place at the DAT campsite just outside Shullsburg. Well, I woke to a heavy dew. My tent and my bike were totally soaked, so I dried off the tent as best I can. This is the pseudo campsite where I got a free spot thanks to the host who was so kind. He was telling me last night that he spent about 7 years developing this as a campsite. And it was sort of like, he owned the place originally just for himself, and then they had so many friends and family that were like, hey, we want to come out and visit you here. This property is great. You should turn it into a campground. And so he did. But, I guess it's a fair bit of work running a campsite. And he discovered he could actually have long-term rentals instead for RVs. And, so that's a good business. Anyway, super friendly guy. Really saved me in a pinch. And now I'm off to see what I can explore. This is really the first time on the trip that I've experienced this low-hanging misty cloud. And everything's kind of damp. One of the other things I got a chance to talk to the guy about was I saw a whole bunch of people on motorcycles when I got to this area of Whitewater River. And he mentioned that there was some sort of motorcycle rally that was on. And so yeah, there was a lot of people riding some route here. I never really did find out what it is, so if you know about it, let me know in the comments. Anyway, I'm on what they say is a highway, but it turned to gravel. So I wasn't really expecting that, but the bike's fully capable on gravel, so no problem.
It's some wetlands here.
All right, I'm about to do my first Mississippi River crossing on my way to Nelson on the Wisconsin side. And well, the first thing I noticed is they put these barriers up so you can't really see anything. Well, there it is. Fortunately, they didn't block it and there isn't much traffic, so I can sort of go at my own pace here and take in a little bit of the beauty of the river. And as I finally make it to the other side, welcome to Wisconsin. One of the great pleasures of Wisconsin for me was the county roads that I traveled on. They had a lot of flair. They went through some hills, so they had some elevation change. There's lots of forest, so it was quite scenic and fun to ride along. The interesting thing about these county roads is that they're lettered, not numbered. And that seemed very odd to me, so I tried to look into the history of it, but it seems like, back before they had any numbering, lettering would make just as much sense as numbers, I guess, and so that's what they went with for the county roads. The other strong memory I have of Wisconsin is endless fields of corn, and I do mean endless. Just about everywhere I would see fields of corn. Well, here's a kind of cool place, the Bucknuckles Restaurant and Pub, but it was too early in the morning for me to go there. So yeah, I was really enjoying these county roads. I think part of it is that Wisconsin has a relatively low population, and out here there's just not a lot of people, so not a lot of traffic. Now the roads themselves, the conditions, not so good. A few potholes, lots of broken asphalt, and yeah, just generally you have to be a bit careful. But I think part of it is it feels a lot like home. Out here in the trees or here in the farmland, it's very similar to what it would be back home in Victoria area. So I think it was a little bit reminiscent, but now this road, silky smooth, fantastic.
Okay, this is a great road for motorcycles, but they put something on this road, like a rubber coating, and it is awful. I felt my tires slipping a bit on some of the turns when really I shouldn't have been anywhere close. So, got to be really careful on this road.
Instability on a bike is the worst feeling ever, but it just seemed to be this particular road. They had done something to it that was just a little different. It had a different look to it as well. I don't know if you can see in the video. So I crossed over the Mississippi again back into Minnesota because I wanted to ride along the Great River Road. But at this section of it, at least, it's just a highway, and although you're right beside the river, you can barely see it. So you can skip this one. So I crossed back to the Wisconsin side, and well, it's a little bit better, but it's kind of a floodplain. I think the river's just too big and has too much fluctuation to have a road close enough to really get a good view. So I returned to the county roads, the forest, and the farmland once again. It was so beautiful here, and it was so warm and sunny. So different than this morning when I first woke up and it was all dewy. Yeah, Wisconsin might not be known for super motorcycle roads, but it is easy to have a good time out here. There's a lot of roads that are just fun to ride, and that's part of the enjoyment of a motorcycle, isn't it? Okay, I was wondering whether to leave this for a bloopers reel or to actually include it, but I got a drone just before this trip, and I'm not very experienced at using it, and boy does it show. I've cut out the parts of the clip where I was just sort of spinning it around wildly at really fast speed and making it so it was very hard to see without getting dizzy, and left me with these small bits, but it is quite a neat perspective to see yourself down there on the ground like an ant. I really need to get some experience though, because I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, playing with the drone makes me respect those who do good drone shots in their videos all the more. It's a bit challenging, and it's not just the drone work itself, it's also the fact that you've got to stop and pull out the drone and set it up and not lose it. I almost lost mine by sending it over a hill off in the distance, and they're hard to see when they're up there in the sky. So yeah, a lot of work required for that. So I thought to myself, well, maybe there's a different way I can get a unique shot. So no, the plan was not to take a shot of an ant, nor of a disposed drink bottle. My plan here was to do a drive-by on the motorcycle. Since I'm solo, there was nobody to take the photo. So I found this guardrail kind of structure, and I thought, well, I'll set the camera up there, and I'll run down the highway, and then I'll come back down the highway and get a good shot. Well, was it worth it? I'll let you be the judge. Well, that's why the helmet cam works so well. It's easy to reach, to turn it on and off, and I think it provides an excellent view of the road ahead. Now, something that you don't see back home is this. The horse-drawn carriages with the Amish people who live a life without modern conveniences, primarily electricity and everything that entails. So apparently Wisconsin has the 4th largest population of Amish people, around 10,000 of them live here. So that makes it rank between Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, and then Wisconsin. Well, it still looks nice and bright and sunny, but actually it's been a long day and I am nearing my destination. I ended up in the DAT or DAT Campground right outside a little town of Shullsburg, and it was a self-registering place, so that was kind of unique. There was nobody there. I checked myself in nonetheless, and everything was good. So then I headed into Shullsburg to get myself a bite at the Berg, known for its burgers. I hadn't had a proper dinner for 3, maybe 4 nights, so I was really looking forward to getting something to eat. Hey, I hope you liked the video. If you did, hit the like button, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next ride.